Something that I've been working very hard on lately is practicing on being present. And I've been practicing on being present because I am a person who struggles with anxiety. Now, I've never been diagnosed by a doctor before, but I would say that I have an anxiety disorder. And I would say I have an anxiety disorder is because if I'm not in control of my thoughts at all times, it can very quickly become like a snowball rolling down a mountain. And you know what happens as that snowball is rolling down that mountain? It's collecting more snow, AKA more stress and more anxiety. And the more it builds, the more I'm spiraling. The more I'm spiraling, the quicker and the closer I'm getting to a panic attack. Now, for my people who don't know what a panic attack is, it's the fucking worst thing in the world. It feels like you're about to die. And I mean, literally. This is not one of them things where people say, oh, I feel like I'm starving to death. No. When you have an anxiety panic attack, you are feeling like you are losing your life. You feel like your chest is getting tight, your lungs are closing up, there's not oxygen coming into your body, and it's just a bad thing. And it's been a while since I've had a panic attack, and I'm very grateful. Shout out to the big homie God for saving me and sparing me. But I've had to become very intentional about my anxiety once I realized that I had a problem with it. And one thing that has really helped me gain peace, right? Because at one point in my life, anxiety felt like it was running me. I felt like anxiety was the key and I was the car, and that motherfucker was taking me wherever the fuck it wanted to go. But one of the ways that I gained my control back from anxiety ruining my life and controlling me is I had to learn how to be present. And I learned how to be present by simply not living in the future and not living in the past. I had to realize that a lot of the time when I felt my chest getting tight and I felt my anxiety being inspired by something, it's usually because I was stressing or over analyzing, being way too overly critical about something that really didn't matter. I find myself walking into a room and then saying something and then leaving that room and then overly analyzing what I said and why I said it like that and how it might have came off to the person listening. And even if I just left that room, because I'm no longer in that room with those people, I'm in a new room, I'm now living in the past versus living in the present. But because I'm living in the past and I'm over analyzing what I did or what I didn't do, I'm, making myself very anxious because I'm thinking about mistakes that I made. And thinking about the mistakes of your past is an easy way to increase your anxiety. Or maybe it's just when I'm thinking about the future and I'm thinking about how I'm in this place of my life where I'm not exactly financially free. I don't have a house. I'm not in position to really do a lot of the creative things that I want to do because I don't have the capital, I don't have the money. And you look to your left and you look to your right and you see other people who do have the money. You see other people who are um, making way more money but working way less hours, who are traveling around the world doing all of these really cool things that I aspire to do one day. And I believe that I will, but sometimes it gets to you a little bit and you become a little self-conscious and you realize like, damn, like I'm not in the place that I exactly want to be in. And that's allowing the future to stop you from being in the present. So I'm at a point in my life where I realize that the key to my anxiety to controlling my anxiety and not allowing my anxiety to control me is being present. And so that's what I've been working on. I've been working and practicing on being more present. And I found that being present is actually one of the easiest things in the world. It's so ironic that anxiety was running my life for years and taking so much of my peace and my balance and my state of mind away from me, because once you start practicing on being present, you realize that being present is always with you. It is a choice that is always right beside you. Being present is like being Ash Ketchum in Pokemon and Pikachu just chasing you everywhere you go. It's always there. No matter where you look, Pikachu is right there. And I know that's a pretty crazy analogy. However, it's the truth. Being present is the option that is always amongst you, because being present is just being here. Now, what do I mean by being here? If you're listening to this podcast right now, that means you're being present because you're listening to me versus thinking about whatever the fuck is going on inside of your head. So I live in New York City, and when I'm on the streets, I practice being present by listening and watching everything. And what do I mean by that? If I see a city bike, obviously city bikes are blue, I focus on the fact that it's blue. If I'm listening to an ambulance drive by, I'm listening to somebody's conversation as they're walking past me on the street. I'm listening to the birds fly above me. I'm listening to just the natural atmospheric ambiance of the city, people talking, people driving in their cars, closing their doors, yelling, laughing, people getting phone calls. All of these things I rather focus on because it is safer. I realize I'm in a safer place mentally when I'm out here versus inside of my head. Now, I think that being inside of your head is obviously not always a bad thing because there are times where we need to think and we need to, we have thoughts and thoughts of creativity, thoughts of things that we need to do to move along our week, to make sure that we have a good work day, all of these things. So I would never try to insinuate that being inside of your mind is all bad. However, anything inside of your mind that isn't immediately needed, anything that you're doing inside of your mind that doesn't require your immediate attention, like right here, right now in this very, very moment, it's a waste of time. And it is probably inspiring your anxiety versus inspiring you to live a life of harmony and balance. So that's just something that I've been working on, being present. And it's not easy. As simple as it is, even though I said that being present is the gift that's kind of always with you, right? You can always choose to be present, but sometimes it doesn't always feel like it's the easiest thing to grab hold on because your thoughts are just so powerful. And the reason why we overthink a lot is because we think that we're helping ourselves. We think that by overthinking about work, overthinking about relationships, we think that we're getting closer to the solution. But I want to tell you something. You're not. You're really not. One thing that I've learned through a lot of books that I read, all the books that I read about, how powerful your mind is and the power of your subconscious mind. And out of all the books that I've read, if I could just summarize thousands and thousands and thousands of pages to just one very important fact, it is this: thinking is going to cause you to go insane. And if you stop thinking, you're not going to die. Now, it might be hard for you to imagine what your life or what your brain is like if it's not thinking. You're probably thinking the first thing that I thought was, well, if I stop thinking, that means that I'm dead. But it doesn't. Once you're not thinking, you realize that at the base level of it, when you're not thinking, your thoughts are not intrusively coming in and out of your mind without your permission. You realize that at the base of it is just emotion. Because a human being, we're very layered, we're very multidimensional beings, and thinking and having thoughts is not who you are, even though you think it is. Because if I were to ask you, where are you in your body? If you were to show me where you think you are, whether that's your spirit or whatever it is that you believe in, a lot of people will probably tell you your mind. But the truth is that you're not. Your spirit, your soul, it exists somewhere else. And I don't know if it's in your heart. I don't know if it's just proliferated throughout your being. I'm not sure, I'm not God. But what I can tell you is that when you stop thinking, what's left is the emotion of peace, the emotion of happiness. The less you think, the happier you become. The less you think, the more peace you'll find. For such a long time, I placed my identity in my thinking and I placed my identity in my thoughts because I was just underneath the impression that this is who I am. Who I am is what I think, and what I think is who my personality becomes. And I'm sure a lot of people like myself think I am my brain. My brain is who I am. And when you think that you are your brain, you think that the thinking and the thoughts and the constant energy just going on up there, you think that's who you are. And when you believe that who you are is your mind, you kind of give your brain a pass to have all these insane thoughts and all this raging thinking going on all over the place. But I want to encourage you to try to stop thinking, because when you stop thinking, it's a lot easier to be present. Because when you're thinking, you're not in the moment, you're inside of your mind. And peace exists in the presence. Being present is all about being in the moment. And it's hard to be in the moment when you're thinking. Now, I know this might sound crazy because when you think about thinking, when you think about thoughts, you think that's what it means to be alive. But it really doesn't, because if you trust me for a second and you just, maybe tomorrow you practice thinking less. And what you'll realize is the less you think, the more you'll find that there's an emotion there. And that emotion is probably positive. It's probably an emotion of balance. It's probably of an emotion of just being at peace. Not necessarily being extremely happy, not exactly being extremely stressed either, just being at peace. And I would say that being at peace is a way better way to feel than overthinking yourself into a state of depression or overthinking yourself into a state of just anxiety, because I had to realize that the majority of my anxiety was coming from me overthinking. And overthinking is a very natural thing to do because you think that thinking is what you're doing to survive. You think that thinking is how you maintain your relationships or how you maintain your finances. You think that it's how you get closer to what it is that you say you want the most out of life. And it's easy to think that. But what you realize when you stop thinking is that at the base of that, everything is okay. You realize that you as a person without your thinking is just you. And you is more than enough. You don't have to be thinking to validate that you're handling your business. You don't have to be thinking to validate that you're on top of things. You just being alive and you being present is going to get the job done just the same. I promise you. And you know what? Don't take my word for it. Try for yourself. Try tomorrow to go out into the world and think less. And you'll realize that your conversations with people is easier. You'll realize that regulating your emotions is a hell of a lot of an easier job when you're not thinking and your thoughts are not guiding you and swaying you all over the place. You feel like a fucking tornado in your own body having mood swings because your thoughts are just taking you anywhere that they want to go. But if you stop thinking, you'll realize that you're in control of your mind. Your mind is not in control of you. Because when you're an anxious person, it feels like your mind is the person that's in control. But if your mind is in control, then that means you're not in control of your life. And it's easy to realize that you are not your mind when you realize that your mind is controlling you versus you controlling your mind. As a person who considers himself an intellectual, it is so easy to get lost in the identity of thinking that you are your thoughts. But when you stop thinking, you realize that what's left is emotion. And emotion is more than enough for you to be who you need to be to your people, to go to work every day, to handle your money, to go get food, to chase your goals, to chase your dreams. Emotion is more than enough to get everything done. And I realized that once I stopped thinking. Now, it sounds crazy, but I really would like to encourage you to try it. Maybe tomorrow you wake up in the morning and you just practice on not thinking, because what the brain does when you really pay attention to this, the brain has a way of guiding you toward negative thoughts very easily. It's almost like as if you were driving and you're on the highway, but you're sleepy. So you're driving, right? You're technically not crashing, but you find yourself veering to the left a little bit, or you a little too much into your right lane next to the other cars, and it's because you're not focused. And you want to be focused on being present. That's what it's like when you're thinking too much. When you're just chilling, minding your business, going throughout the day, your mind starts to drift a little bit to a side. And if you're not paying attention, you find yourself way in another lane. And by the time you're in another lane, that means you're not in control because you either what? Because you either gonna what? You either gonna crash out, hurt somebody else, or most importantly, hurt yourself. Instead, try being present. Because when you're present, you're in a place of peace. Thinking causes stress. A lot of the time, stress comes from thinking. When you think about the happiest moments that you've ever had in your life, right? Like, just try to imagine with me real quick. Think about the time you gave birth to your child, or you think about the time you were with your family and everything was right. The weather was right, the food was good, the money was there. If you really think about those moments, you'll realize you wasn't doing a lot of thinking when you was in that moment. You were being present. When you think about your when you think about your happiest moments in your life, you'll probably realize that you were present during all of those moments. When you think about your saddest moments in life, the moments where you were depressed, the moments when you were the most depressed, the moments when you were the most sad, the most anxious, your mind was probably going 100 miles per second. You were probably thinking crazy. Thinking is the cause of stress. Thinking is the cause of the reason why you don't have peace in your life. And when you're the happiest in your life, it's probably because you're not thinking at all. You're just here. You're just one with the moment. You're one with the person across the table from you. You're one with your family. You're one with your friends. You're one with yourself. And that is an easy way to find more peace in your life. It doesn't always have to be about taking a vacation or buying new clothes or having more money. Sometimes you can bring more happiness in your life just by stopping your thinking. Sometimes being present is not the easiest thing to do. It takes a lot of practice. And this entire week, I've just been practicing on being anywhere but inside of my mind because I already know what it's like there. I live there. I've lived there for years. I'm 30. I've been in my mind for years. I already know what it's like in there. So I realized that I'm not really missing anything. I need a break. I need a break from being inside of my mind because as I'm on this journey of controlling my anxiety and finding my peace, I have to be honest with myself and admit that I am not in control of my mind all of the time. In fact, it is the times when I'm not in control when I'm the most stressed and I'm the most anxious and I'm the most unhappy. So, me being present and practicing on being present every day is a declaration against my life to find happiness, to find peace. Because if I'm going to make these dreams come true, if I'm going to be a better brother to my sister, a better son to my mother and my father. I gotta be at peace while I'm doing it. It is going to be so hard to be the best at anything that you want the most out of life, whether that's being a better person to your people, whether that's being a better person to yourself, whether that's being a better person at your job, if you're going to overthink. Overthinking does nobody any good. Now, you might think that you being an overthinker means that you care, but why don't you care about being peaceful first? Because once you're at a place of peace, the best of your ideas and the best of your creativity can actually reach you. It's hard for your creativity and the great ideas to reach you when you're tired and you're running on E and you out of gas and you got an attitude and you grumpy all the time and you depressed. Like, there's no great energy coming through you because you're overthinking and that negative energy is inside of you. And they both can't be in you at the same time. Your body only has so much space to carry one emotion at a time. Either you happy or you sad. And when you're overthinking, that's giving your body it's creating the perfect breeding place for negativity when you're overthinking. And when you're happy, you're at peace. There's no need to be thinking so hard. There's no need to be overly critical about anything because all you know is what you feel. And what you feel is peace. And what you feel is happiness. So when you're being present, you're focusing on how it is that you feel. And even if you don't really feel the best, that's fine. Focus on everything that's outside of yourself as practice. Practice on the sound of your voice. Practice on the sound of somebody else's voice. Practice on being very intentional about looking a person in their eyes and making sure you're hanging on to every single word. Listen to the wind. Look at the clouds in the sky. Pay attention to the sound of your footsteps. Pay attention to the music. Whatever you do, practice on focusing on things outside of yourself. And what you'll find is that your body will naturally go to a place of peace. Your body will naturally go to a place of homeostasis, of harmony, of balance. And that's what you want. Because the more peace you have, the better version of yourself you can be, not only to yourself, but to everybody else around you. And the more fun you are and the more joy you are to be around, the more people want to be next to you. And that makes you feel better. Everything comes from a place of harmony and a place of balance. And you get that from being present. So I want to encourage my people when you're out there and you're going to work, you want a date, you're kicking it with your friends, or maybe you're just spending time with yourself. Practice on being present. Maybe go find you some water. Go to a lake or something like that. Listen to the water. Listen to water in motion. Listen to get you a meditation bowl, right? That's how I learned how to meditate in the first place. I learned how to meditate by using a sound bowl because when you hit in that bowl and you hear that sound resonate, you realize that when you keep hitting it and you keep listening to the sound, you're listening all the way up to the point that you know for a fact that you can't hear it anymore. What you're doing is you're being present. And after hitting that sound bowl for so many times, maybe 10 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour, you realize that once you're done, you decide you've had enough. You realize that you're at peace. You realize that you feel pure. You feel like water in a cup that's just still. There's no ripples going on. You just feel like you're just present. And presence is peace. So working on being present is working on finding your peace. If you can work on finding your presence and you eventually get to a point where you do find it, you'll realize that your peace is waiting for you there. And if there's not another reason to practice on being present, I think that's the reason. So practice on being present. Practice on listening to things. Practice on not being inside of your mind. Being inside of your mind is not the place you want to be. So if you find yourself coming back to your thoughts, coming back to your thinking, that's okay. Just try to slowly but surely gravitate towards getting back into life. Don't be inside of your head. Gravitate towards getting back into life. And after a while, you'll realize you're going to get good at it. And once you get good at it, you'll realize that there's more peace in your day. There's more peace in the simple things, the mundane things like going to work, like going to the refrigerator, grabbing something. texting your friend, giving somebody a call, you'll realize that you're more mindful and you're more present. And that's what we should all be striving for, man. We should all be striving for presence because once we find presence, we find peace. And once we find peace, we find a happier life. And that's you giving yourself the gift that, you don't need money for it. At least not right now. We're not right here in this moment. You don't need $1,000. You don't need a new car. You don't need a new house. You have everything that you need, everything within your power. And you can get that by practicing on just being here. And that's what I'm doing right now. Right now, as I'm talking to y'all, I'm being present. I'm not thinking about how both of my bank accounts are in the negative right now. I'm not thinking about how I need to pay on these credit cards. I'm thinking about working on my craft and living in my purpose and putting another point on the board towards creating this brand, the halfway up brand, which means you're never finished rising. I'm never talking about something that I cannot relate to or something that I've not personally gone through. So if you struggle with being present, I want to let you know that so do I, but I'm working on it and I'm getting better at it. And with that being said, I'm out, man. I love y'all. I want to also let you know that it was very hard for me to do this episode. I don't know why, but I started this episode off completely different for something completely different, something else. Even this set, I had this entire set and this whole aesthetic and this whole look in mind for something entirely different. But and I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up because I just felt like the ideas were not genuinely and naturally coming to me. But I decided to stay in there and see it through. And even if it's not perfect, just to get it done would be more than enough for me. And if I really don't like it, then I won't put it out. But chances are it's not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be. And I'm willing to make a bet on that. So if you listen this far, I appreciate you. Um, if you haven't already, please like, share, comment, subscribe, leave a rating for me on Spotify if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple. Follow me on my Instagram. Just show me some love. If you're pulling value from this, if you enjoyed this in any kind of way, then your support would mean absolutely everything to me. And before I get up out of here, as always, whenever I'm working, I will remember that done is better than perfect. And if I'm satisfied with my work, then I'm living in my purpose. Halfway up, baby. I'm out.